It's a great Monday to be alive. My name is George Essien and welcome to Podium Dynamics Academy. Welcome to Public Speaking School Online. Today we'll talk about something very important, a major part of public speaking, and that part of public speaking that you must pay attention to is called audience analysis. So if you're taking down notes, it's important that you write this down clearly. Audience analysis in public speaking. Why is it important? How can you engage in audience analysis? Do you realize that before you can engage any audience, you first must analyze that audience? So let's quickly define what audience analysis is. Audience analysis is simply knowing your audience in details and finding out how best to engage them. I repeat that for emphasis. Audience analysis is simply knowing your audience in details and finding out how best to engage them. A lot of speakers go out there to speak, give a toast, do a eulogy, a valedictory speech, or wherever, give a paper, give a conference without thoroughly analyzing and researching the audience. I often tell my students who speak in public never to speak to an audience they don't know. We're going to look at that in a short while. You've got to research your audience, find out what they want to hear, find out what they've already been hearing, find out the familiarity with your subject before you engage them. And if you're looking for something to write down, write this down. Audience analysis precedes audience engagement. What does that mean? It means that before you can engage the audience and appeal to the audience, you first must analyze them. So that's very important. Another thing that you also want to write down is also very important, that audience engagement leads to audience analysis. So the first thing we mentioned here is that audience analysis precedes or comes before audience engagement, and you see the importance of audience analysis in a short while. And then we say next that audience engagement leads to audience analysis. Why is it important that you analyze your audience? Why is it very important before you speak in a church, before you speak at that conference, before you speak at that association meeting, whatever it is? Why is it important that you analyze your audience? I'm going to share a few thoughts with you. First thing you must realize about audiences is that audiences are egocentric. What does that mean? It means that they're literally they're self-interested. They're thinking about what is in it for them or for me. People will listen to you speak and they're asking themselves, why should I listen to this guy? What does he have to offer? Why should I be sitting down here? People literally tune off when they listen to you. So the first thing you must understand why audience analysis is important, because audiences are egocentric. The next thing is also very important why you need to do audience analysis. This audience will judge a speech based on what they already know and believe. Now, if you're a salesperson, for example, you're speaking to an audience, they already have preconceived notions, they have a mindset. So when you're speaking to them, they're going to judge your speech based on what they already know and believe. That's why audience analysis is important. Don't go and speak to an audience that you don't know, you have not researched about their beliefs, you have not researched about what you already know. That can be a major issue. To be an effective public speaker, you must relate your message to an audience's existing interests, concerns, knowledge, and beliefs. As trite as a platitude this may seem to be, it is very important. What do your audience already believe? What do they know already? And what are they interested in? So a few things I want you to write down that is part of audience analysis. It begins with interests, it proceeds to engagement, and it leads to motivation. So write those three words down: interest, engagement, motivation. What could your audience be interested in? That's interest. You can never truly be interesting until you are interested. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So, be genuinely interested in the audience, find out what they know. For example, if Barack Obama, or when Bill Clinton came to Nigeria a few years ago, 2001, Obasanjo was president at that time, and he gave a speech. One of the things we noticed in that speech it was that it was filled with a lot of things that we could relate with. For example, we He talked about juju music. He talked about King Sunny Ade. He talked about Fela Kuti at that time, and we could relate with those figures at that time. Interest is important. Find out what your audience is already interested in, and start from there. Find common ground. Develop rapport. After interest, the next thing is engagement. And I'll be showing you a few ways to engage your audience using icebreakers or using facilitation methods, which is very vital. And once you've engaged your audience, it leads to motivation. Start with interest, proceeds to engagement, leads to motivation. Let me give you another model, very powerful audience engagement model. The first thing is profile. Profile your audience. Who is your host? What do they want to hear? Who are your audiences? Profile them. Do a profile analysis. Find out their interests, their culture, their gender, their religious affiliation, their preferences, their preconceived notions, their beliefs, and all of that. The knowledge they already have, their existing knowledge, their familiarity with your subject. Of course, so it begins with profiling. It proceeds to you intention, okay, sharing your intention, sharing your heart with them, and it finally leads to knowledge. So that's how it goes. Profile, intention, knowledge. Interest, engagement, motivation. I'm going to break down what audience literally means, and it will help you understand the import and the importance of audience analysis. Let's start with A. A stands for analyze. Who are the recipients? Who are the audience you need to analyze them? So A stands for who are, ask the question, who is or who are the recipients. U stands for understanding. What is their knowledge of your message, or what's the familiarity they already have of your message? That's what U stands for. D stands for demographics. What do we mean by demographics? What's their age, their gender, their education or educational level, their position? Do you think that all that is important in your speaking? Very, very important. I'm speaking to a bunch of professors. How best should I communicate with them? Of course, I have to raise the bar. I have to speak in terminologies that they understand. Speak their language. You need to raise the bar. I'm speaking to illiterates. How best am I going to speak with them? If I can speak the local dialect, I should, or get an interpreter. Now, let me say this about public speaking. Public speaking is not all about diction. Diction is important where it matters. Okay, diction is important for your international platforms and for prominent recognition, but ideally public speaking is the ability to connect with the audience and deliver your message strongly. So D stands for demographics, their age, their gender, their educational level, and their position. I stands for interest. We already said that. What is their interest or investment in your message? What's in it for them? E stands for environment. Why is the environment important? What is your relationship with the audience? What is their likely attitude to your message? Have you taken into consideration the cultural differences? Environment is also important. So AUDIE we've looked at. N, the next N stands for needs. What information does your audience need to hear? You should be value conscious in that regard. C, and that is very important, C stands for customize. Every speaker must learn how to customize or tailor their message to fit the audience. I can teach this here and go to another environment, go to another audience, and then literally customize it to fit that audience. You must think customize. And then finally, E stands for expectations. What's your audience expectation? So that's the acoustic or the acronym of audience, and it's important. All right, so let's go over it. A stands for analyze, U stands for understand, D stands for demographics, that means age, gender, educational level, position. I stands for interest, what's their vested interest in the message. E stands for environment, N stands for needs, C stands for customize, and E stands for expectations. Now, when are the 3 times you need to do audience analysis? What 3 times do you need to do audience analysis? First, you need to do audience analysis before you give your presentation. You also need to do audience analysis during your presentation. How does that work? I'm going to share that in a short while. And you also need to do your audience analysis after the presentation. Before, and that's quite important. That helps you have knowledge of them. During, you can be standing on stage and looking at the audience, and through their eye contact with you, through their body movements, through their cues and clues, through their feedback, their literal feedback to you, you can quickly know what kind of audience you're dealing with. For those of you who've been following me, I've taught you that we have three kinds of audiences every time. We have the V audiences, we have the A audiences, and then we have the C audiences. What does V audiences means? The visual audiences. What these guys do basically is that when they listen to you speak during the presentation, they take those words and they try to convert those words to pictures. They are picture driven, and that's why they'll respond a whole lot more to you when you do flip charts, when you use your flip chart, or you write on the board, or use a projector, or use ice or speaking prop, or use icebreakers. They really connect with you because they are visual oriented. They want to interpret words that we share with them into pictures, and they are there. Children fall into this category, and if you're speaking to children, you've got to be you have to express more the visual element of your presentation. Show them pictures, show them actual props, and so on. That's what you get to understand during the presentation. You probably will not get to know this before, but while you're on stage during the presentation, you get to know whether these guys are visual or whether they are auditory. That's A. A stands for whether they are listening people or content-driven people. There are a lot of people who you listen to who are looking for substance, who are looking for depth, who are looking for content, who are looking for logic, who are looking for statistics, facts. They're driven more by the content of the presentation. So all of the hype, the jump around, the razzmatazz, all of those things you do outside of the content you're giving doesn't move them. Okay, so the last kind of persons you have in an audience are the F audience, or the feeling audience. Technically, we call them the kinesthetic audience. The kinesthetic audience are people who feel. They want to feel you. They don't want you to speak in monotones. They want to feel the tonality, your vocal variety, the use of your pulse, the way you engage them. They are feeling. So we have the V, we have the A, and we have the C. We have the V, that's the visuals, the A, the auditory or the hearing, content-driven people. And then we have the F people, who are the feelings. They are feelings people. So you want to do your presentation by looking at them, and that's in an advanced class. I'll show you how to stand on stage or stand on the podium and then look at people and quickly get what kind of audience you're dealing with. Of course, all three of these audiences will be in your presentation or in every meeting you have. Your job is to identify which of the audience is more. If it's a V, the visual ones, then you focus more on the visual elements of your presentation. You show them pictures, you show them speaking props. If it's the auditory or the content driven people, then you give them facts, you give them figures, you give them details, wow them with your content. And if it is the feeling people, that you want to be more emotional driven, you want to do a lot of icebreakers, you want to tell them yeah, go on and so on. So you need to determine quickly what kind of audience predominantly or preeminently you're dealing with at that moment in time. So you do your audience analysis before, and that's important. We'll look at that shortly. I've just explained how you do your audience analysis during, and then you also do your audience analysis after. What that means is that you want to evaluate yourself. You want to ask yourself the question, how did I do? Did I do well? Was I able to connect with them? Was I able to pass across knowledge with them? This is very vital. So let me go a little talk about before, because this is important. Before, one key thing that you must do before your presentation is called demographical analysis. If you're writing, I'd like you to write that down. Demographical analysis of your audience. What age are you dealing with? Age is important. Age range, 18 to 25, think differently. 25 to 40. 35, think differently. Demographic. Gender, are we dealing with an all men group or a predominantly male group? Male, men, all of that. You want to find out about that. The gender, you want to look at their income level. Do you think income matters? I think income matters when it comes to your presentation. Occupation, what kind of occupation are you dealing with? Race and ethnicity, if you're talking to Caucasians, you're talking to Nigerians, or whatever ethnicity or race, even tribe can matter in your presentation. Religion can matter in your presentation. Sexual orientation can matter in your presentation. Class of people, social economics can matter in your educational background. All of these determine what kind of words you use, your phraseology, determines the icebreakers you use. Very important. Before your presentation, you need to do demographical analysis. Another kind of analysis you want to do before you do your presentation is what we call psychographical analysis. Write that down in your notes. Psychographical. Psycho and graphic or graphical analysis. And here, you want to find out what's the already existing values. Values are important. People have values, People already have values. What's their existing values? What do they already believe? Okay, what are their attitudes? What's their behavior? What's their needs? That is looking at the psychographical part of your audience, which you must pay attention to and you want to also document. The final thing that you do before you present is called the situational analysis. So we mentioned the demographical analysis, the psychographical analysis, and now the situational analysis. What do we mean by that? All right, so one of the questions I'll ask usually is, what's the size of my audience? How many people are we looking at? We have 100, we have 10, because you see, there are certain icebreakers that will fit into a small group. There are certain icebreakers I will do that will fit into a large group. So I want to find what's the size of the audience? What's the size of the audience? Okay, what's the size of the audience? Next thing, what type of audience am I dealing with? And then what's the disposition of the audience? What do I mean by disposition? I mean that there are some audiences that are not very friendly. Like if you were giving speeches at the NSAS protest that happened in Nigeria a few months ago. I mean, the young people predominantly, not too long speeches. Basically, the idea is disposition is they're agitating for change. They're agitating that the SARS ended, police brutality was no more there. So you could see that they were agitating. So you're going there not to give structured speeches, but to literally tell them you are in support of them, and then and give your speech. So what type of audience are you dealing with? What's the size of the audience? The number of the audience also matter. You do a lot of body gestures when you have a large crowd. If you have a large crowd, then you have to project your voice and also want to use your body language has to be louder by doing more gestures, in your presentation. So we looked at demographical analysis before you do your presentation, psychographical analysis, determining their values, their needs, their interests, and situational analysis. What size of audience are you dealing with? So you see someone like me, I'm speaking to an audience, I'll get all those details from the hosts or the principal of the meeting. So I already discussed a few things about during your presentation, how to quickly know whether these audiences are really, really interested. One important part of knowing whether your audience is interested in your presentation is how much attention they have of you. They are sleeping, they are yawning. I mean, that is indicative that you are not getting across to them. Perhaps you want to use a story or do an icebreaker or do a game, do an activity that will get them back. If they're leaning forward, it means that there's something positive. Their hands on their chin, their eyes staring at you or staring at the slide, it means that there's something you're doing that is right. Are they understanding what you're saying? That's another thing you want to ask. You look at that, you look at the audience through their eye contact, make eye contact with them and see if they are grasping the knowledge that you're sharing. And then at the end of the presentation, or while are they accepting? Are they giving you thumbs up? Are they saying yeah? Are they nodding or doing the sound? That kind of thing. That really shows whether you're making progress or not. So we looked at before, during, and let's finally look at after. After you're looking at after, we can break it into two parts. Short term, after your presentation. Quickly, you want to see that people are taking action. One of the things we do that is very important in speaking is the objective or the purpose of your presentation. And the purpose of your presentation should be to get them to take action. So short term, what's the short term activities you want them to do? What results you want to get? Or what's your objective short term? And then long term, in the next few weeks or 1 month, what results are you seeking for? So that's basically audience analysis in a nutshell. But I want to move on to quickly talk about audience engagement, because someone says, okay, we understand audience analysis, and help us understand audience engagement. There's a whole, there's a lot to talk about there, but I'm just going to break it down to something very simple for your consumption. Statistics have it that in 2003, audiences in the world have a 12 seconds attention span. That's why virtual meetings can be very difficult. People, they are looking for anything a lot engaging and so on. So people's attention span, is as small as 2003 was as small as 12 seconds. But interestingly, in 2015, audiences have less attention span, 8 seconds. So people want to stay online for 8 seconds, they listen to you for 8 seconds and they tune. So you have 8 seconds to pass across your message. Ultimately, the time you can hold a person's attention is between 18 to 20 minutes. Only very disciplined people, will stay longer with you. All right, like if they are coming there to learn, they stay longer with you. But you have between 18 to 20 minutes to get the attention of people. So at the beginning, the attention is probably very high. Then in the middle of the presentation, it begins to fade. There's a graphical representation here on my slide that shows that it begins to fade. But when you indicate that you are about to close the presentation, it begins to rise up a little. So how do you engage an audience? Okay, you can do a few things, and I like you to write this down to help you if you are writing and taking down notes. You can physically engage them. One, you can ask a question and get them to stand up and interact with you. All right, ask questions. Questions arrest attention. Questions are attention grabbers. You can take a poll. Get them to raise up your hands if they're doctors, if they're interested in these. Okay, you can show it and discuss a video. Now that's one of the things I notice a lot of facilitators and speakers do these days. So you put a video on your slide and they watch the video, short video perhaps, maybe a few minutes, 2-3 minutes, and I've gone for many meetings where videos were shown like that. Once you're done with the video, you tell them to discuss it. That really engages the audience a whole lot. That gets them to participate, that gets them to flow with what you are talking about. So, and to engage your audience, these are all audience connecting techniques, is to use inclusive language. What do I mean by inclusive language? Use more we, us instead of I. Most speakers, especially pastors, unfortunately, use the word I a lot. Try using the word we, us. That inclusive language is very powerful, it's very endearing, and it gets people to believe that they are together. So inclusive language is powerful, and you want to be using it. And if you want to challenge your audience, use the word you a whole lot. You will get them to take. Now, some words that you should be using as a speaker that will get them into trance. And I've told you severally that when we speak, we put people into trance, and trance is powerful because we can go through or go past through their subconscious mind, so their conscious mind to the subconscious mind. Use words like imagine this, all right? Picture this. What if? So words like imagine this, picture this, what if are very powerful terms and words and that you can use to get people into trance and to connect with them very, very powerfully. Let's talk about also things like, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean for you? Basically, the idea is to get them to engage with you. And I've been in meetings where the speaker was so engaging, he gave us a task, told us to do stuff. So you engage the audience with these ideas I've shared with you. Ask more questions. Demonstrate with your audience. Demonstrate with them. Nothing is as powerful as that. What we hear, we forget. What we see, we remember. But what we do, we experience and understand. The level of understanding that we have when we do things, most people like to speak and speaking and get the audience to hear. That's very, very passive. But when you engage your audience by asking them questions, getting them to give you feedbacks, giving them tasks, demonstrating with them, doing illustrations, you are engaging them more, and the learning experience is deeper, is anchored deeper. Give them time to react. Invite a volunteer, and this is very important. Use a real object prop. So those are a few ideas that will help you to engage your audience. Today we've looked at two important things. We'll look more at audience analysis, and we said that audience analysis is knowing your audience and in details, and finding how best to engage them. I've also said that audience analysis precedes audience engagement. If you truly want to be somebody who is a great speaker, you must do your audience analysis before, during, and after. And we looked at it extensively. Take your time to watch this video again and again and take note of it. Become more particular about your audience. We also moved on to talk about audience engagement. We said that audience analysis precedes audience engagement, and audience engagement births audience appeal. You want your audience to give you a standard ovation, to enjoy the experience, understand it, then you want to engage your audience some more. I hope you got value, so much value. I hope you're taking down notes as you watch this, and you can go over this again and again. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, I'd like you to click on the subscribe button. Click on the subscribe button so that every time we play, I put in more public speaking videos or videos like this, you will get to know it. If you're watching on Facebook, fantastic. Get your friends to like this, to join this group, all right, this public speaking school group online, and then you can get to watch a lot of videos, not just from me, but from other top public speaking experts. If you're on YouTube, also click on the notification button so that every time there's a message, you can get informed about a new video, a new content that is provided. Thank you. You can also reach out to me. If you're on Facebook, you simply have to look out for George Essien, click on message, and you get across to me. Or if you're not on Facebook or you're on YouTube and you want to get across to me on the internet, go to georgeessien.com. GeorgeEssien.com, and then reach out to me. I'm so delighted to answer your questions. We have a lot of materials on public speaking that can help you become better. I look forward to doing business with you. I look forward to seeing you again. Have a great day.